for pain and stress research, and I use the Dolphin Neurostims in my everyday practice, doing pain management and rehabilitation stuff. So tonight we're going to do a tutorial on how to use these for a variety of different things. So if you have a Dolphin Neurostim available, please do grab it so we can look over it as we continue with this tutorial. So we're going to do about an hour of talking. And I'm going to show you guys how to do some things with this. And then at the end, we'll have about 30 minutes of question and answer. You can certainly type questions in the chat box and I will get to them towards the end. Or when we get to the end, you can also ask questions in person. So I've been using this system for, gosh, more than 20 years now, in neurology, neurosurgery, physiatry, and women's health settings, and a little bit in chiropractic offices as well. So I find it to be an extremely useful tool. And so I want to share a little bit about what I know of this tool with you guys this evening and how to go about utilizing some of the protocols that you guys have. This is a really effective tool. It is based on the science of microcurrent and how small amounts of electricity affect the body and your nervous system. And it's also based on principles of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So we combine the two of those into a cohesive treatment that gives you some really outstanding outcomes. So without further ado, if you have a Dolphin Neurostim, please grab it. And we will start at the end here. Let me check over here real quick. All right, so just real quick before we get started, you guys are going to get a link tomorrow from us via email, and you can watch this video as many times as you want. So if there's something that you miss, don't worry about it. You'll be able to watch this again and again and again. You're also going to get an invitation to join our Facebook forum. I highly recommend that. It's a great place to ask questions, hook up with other practitioners in your area, find people who might be able to treat you. It's also a good way to see who's doing what kind of treatments if you have specific questions. So look for that tomorrow. That should be coming from Hetby, who's at our main office in Toronto. I'm down here in the South in Georgia, but I will actually be up in Toronto this weekend speaking at a conference. So let's see, is there anything else we need to go over? I think that's about it. All right, so starting with the Dolphin Neurostim, starting at the tip, you will notice that there is a spring-loaded tip right here. If you push on it, you see it springs back. So that is a biocompatible alloy. It is connected to the rest of the electrical apparatus in here via a spring that has a conductive medium on it. All that to say, when you use these and clean them, we do not recommend that you pour any liquid down into this hole because you can cause corrosion in the metal. We recommend that you use alcohol wipes and you just simply clean the surface off. You can certainly take just a bunch of cotton swabs and put them in a glass vase and just pour alcohol over them and use those. That's fine. But you can clean the entire thing with alcohol, and that is great. All right, so moving up from there, you will see there is a black button right here. You'll notice that when I press it, absolutely nothing happens, and that is because the unit is off, and nothing is going to happen until the unit's on. However, when I turn the unit on, if I hold this button down, I am initiating a treatment. And as long as I hold this button down, I will continue to do the treatment. But as soon as I release that button, the treatment stops. And I have to push the button again to restart the treatment. All right, so up from there, you're going to see a little roller switch right here. So this roller switch serves three different functions. It's your on and off switch, it's your battery test, and it's a way to control the intensity of the stimulation. So we're going to turn this on. And when you turn it on, you should hear a pretty steady beeping noise, a constant tone. And when you look on the back of the unit, you should see a green light on like this. If you do not see a green light on like that, that means that your battery is getting close to being dead and you need to change it. So while we're on the topic, I'm going to go over how to change the battery in this, because that is, interestingly enough, one of the most frequent customer service calls that they get up at the main office, and the place that people are most likely to screw this thing up. So you will see that there are two screws at either end of the unit here. And we have had probably hundreds of people try to take the screws out of these units to take this apart to change the battery. And if you do that, two things happen. One, parts go flying everywhere. And number two, you void your warranty and you have to send it to us for us to put it back together for you. So we do not recommend taking these screws out. Instead, we recommend using the handy dandy battery compartment door that's right here. So all you need is you laugh, but it happens all the time. All right, so you either need a knife or a screwdriver or even a coin, and you just pop this open, and you will see there's a standard 9-volt battery in there. In this case, I have an Energizer battery in here. You're going to give it a little slap, and you can pull it right out. There are 3 batteries we recommend for these units. We recommend regular Energizer batteries. We recommend Panasonic batteries, which is one they come stock with. You're probably going to have a hard time finding Panasonic batteries. And the other one we recommend is the Duracell batteries. So these are your 3 choices for batteries. I do not recommend going outside of these 3 batteries. There is a very, very important reason for this. So when we design this unit, you'll notice that most things that have a 9-volt battery in them have a little tiny cord that comes out with some wires on it and a little squishy tab that you have to press down on here. And those always break. People pull those loose all the time. So we decided to build a battery compartment that would exactly hold a 9-volt battery. And it does that. The problem is that even though all AA batteries are the same, all AAA batteries are the same, C batteries, D batteries, they're all the same, except for 9-volt batteries. So some 9-volt batteries are a little bit longer and some are a little bit shorter, just by a couple of millimeters, but it makes a difference. So I don't know why that variation exists in the industry. We didn't discover that until we started trying to make a battery compartment, but that's what it is. So if you put a battery in here that's too short, it's going to rattle back and forth and you're going to get intermittent contacts and you're not going to get a good signal. So it's not going to work very well. If you put a battery in here that's too long, there's actually a little white plastic post right there, and you can actually crack that post, and it's part of what holds the device together. So we don't recommend using batteries that are too long. Also, if you use cheap dollar store batteries in here, even if they fit, the problem you will run into is that they have a habit of dumping all their voltages once because they're cheap batteries, and you can actually fry the circuit board and your Dolphin Neurostim. So for a couple of bucks more, you can get a decent battery. Any of these batteries last me for about a month. So I start work at about 8 o'clock in the morning. I finish treating patients at 6 o'clock at night. I do not take lunch breaks, and I use these for probably 20 minutes out of each treatment, and these batteries last about a month. So they last a long time. However, if you turn the Dolphin Neurostim on and you do not see a green light right here, that means you need to change the battery. So we're going to go ahead and put this battery in here. Now, when you put the battery door back on, it is a very tight fit. It's going to feel like it's going to break when you do this, but it's not. You're just going to push it and it's going to snap and you're good to go. So we're going to turn the Dolphin Neurostim over. Look at the roller switch here. We're going to turn that on. We're going to get a steady tone and we're going to have a nice green light, which tells me that we're good to go. So now that we have this on, if we roll this in either direction, you can either turn the intensity up or turn the intensity down as you're doing a treatment. And we're going to go back to this little button. So if you push on this button right here, you will hear this device start to beep. And if you look on the other side, you'll see that it blinks. Now, watch what happens when I take my finger away. It stops blinking. If I push the button, it starts to blink again. Take my finger off the button, it doesn't blink. So when I'm actively pushing this button, I'm initiating a treatment. But as soon as I let go of this button, I'm not doing a treatment anymore. So it's not enough just to hold this down on somebody. You've actually got to depress this button to do a treatment. But you don't want to push this button down until you have actually found your treatment points. And this device actually has a point finder in it. It will find Chinese acupuncture points. It will find myofascial trigger points, and it will also find motor points and muscles. So electrically, this has a finder in it, a point finder in it. And we recommend that you use it to find the points with before you initiate the treatment. Because if you just turn it on and push this button, you'll never be able to find the points. So I'm going to teach you how to do that in a couple minutes. But we have a couple more features to go over with the Dolphin Neurostim first. So you'll notice there's a little tiny black button right here. With the device off, if I push it, absolutely nothing happens. But if I turn the device on, check to make sure I got a nice green light, which tells me the battery's good, roll it back over and push this button, you'll notice that it goes silent. But if I flip it over, you'll see the light is still blinking. So that tells me this device is now in a constant treatment mode. So it's in a timed treatment mode. So now I don't have to hold this button down. This will run for somewhere between 11 and 13 minutes. It counts the number of electrons that go through the tip. So if your battery is a little bit stronger, it goes a little bit faster. If your battery is a little bit weaker, it goes a little bit slower, but 11 to 13 minutes. And then once it's done with the treatment cycle, it's going to revert back to what we call the search phase, and you're going to have this steady green light and a steady tone. Okay, so if I push this and it goes silent, it's doing a treatment. I don't have to push on anything. I just need to either hold it on a point or have one of the electrode cables attached to it, which we'll go over in a few minutes, but it will just do this. So we initially had devices that would just stay on when you did this. And the problem we had was that when people were doing things like vagus nerve stimulation, they would fall asleep at night and then do like 6 or 8 hours of vagus nerve stimulation straight through, which tends to make you like a little groggy in the morning. So we put a timer on here so that therapists working in offices will know when they've hit about the 10 to 12 minute mark on their treatments. Okay. So turning the Dolphin Neurostim over, there are some other features here. You will see that there is a stainless steel plate right here. This plate is very, very important. When you are doing a treatment, you have got to touch this metal plate. You have to touch this metal plate and have skin contact with your patient. Now, if it's yourself, you don't have to touch your own hand or face or whatever. But if it's someone else, the tip of this unit has to come into contact with their skin, like so. And then your hand has to touch them somewhere. It doesn't have to be their face, but it has to be skin to skin. I can't touch on their clothing. I have to touch on the skin. The current has to go into the tip of this unit, has to come back up through my hand, circulate back, and go in through this little metal plate right here. We do recommend that you hold these devices like this. So you've got your thumb on the metal plate, like you're holding a pen. It'll just rest in your hand easily that way. You have good fine motor control, so you can easily find your treatment points. If you start trying to hold it any other way, it gets really awkward really fast. It just doesn't work quite as well. So that's my recommendation for you guys. All right. So there's a couple more features here. We have at the top here, we have a polarity switch. You can see it says polarity right here. And there is a plus symbol, a minus symbol, and a plus minus symbol. So that is our negative polarity, our positive polarity, and our biphasic channel. So that's going to correspond to sedating and acupuncture, which is the negative. So sedating is bringing things down, any condition of excess, which is things like pain, tight muscles, conditions like nausea, vomiting, heart attacks, strokes, tinnitus, shingles, like most of the things that make you sick, you mostly want to bring those down because it's excessive at the time. So I would say that probably 98% of the time, if you kept this on the negative setting, you would probably be choosing the right setting. However, if you look in any of the books that come with our devices, you will see on every one of the protocols, near each of the point names, there is a symbol. So there is either a minus or a plus symbol near each of these. So each of these protocols will tell you exactly which polarity to use. So you don't really have to guess at it. Now, so we've gone over the negative. If we slide over one notch, that's going to put us on the positive polarity. That's right here. That's for bringing things up. So those are conditions that are deficient. So a condition that's deficient might be somebody who had Bell's palsy in their face where their face was drooping. It might be someone whose adrenals are shot, like their adrenals are just going all the time. They have no energy left, and you need to revitalize their system. It may be an area where there's not enough muscle tone, and you're trying to bring muscle tone back into an area. So those are conditions where you might want to use the positive polarity. And then the last setting on here is a biphasic setting. So it is a plus minus symbol right here. And that's going to be used almost exclusively for doing scar treatments. There are a few other uses we have for it in some of our advanced courses, in our concussion workshops and our scar workshops and stuff like that. But for the most part, in this tutorial, we're going to use it just for the scar treatments. So one more feature on the Dolphin Neurostim, and you will see that there is a slider switch here that has normal, wet, and dry. So it's got wet here, normal in the middle, and dry on this side. So that's how you adjust the sensitivity of the ohm meter. So what this device does is it measures when you run this across your skin, it actually measures how conductive your skin is via an ohm meter that's embedded in the device. So if your skin is really, really wet, That's generally because you're sweating, and sweat is salt water, and salt water is very conductive. So if you have really sweaty skin, if you're down south, like where I am in Georgia on the coast in the summertime, people come in sometimes and they're sweaty. So in that setting, I would in that particular case, I'd want to put this on the wet setting to make this device actually a little less sensitive to finding points because everything on the skin is going to be conductive. So I actually need the point finder to be a little less sensitive. Now, most of the time, we've got the air conditioner on or heat on or whatever. So I keep it on the normal setting. That seems to be quite good. But if you live in an area that's really cold or really hot and dry, you're going to find that people's skin tends to get really dried out. And if their skin is really dried out, it does not conduct electricity very well and is much harder to find treatment points. So you want this as sensitive as possible. So you actually want to put this on the dry setting. So that's all the features of the Dolphin Neurostim. And now we're going to go over how to use this to find points. So I'm going to grab, let's see here. I'm going to grab this natural health book here. Let me find a couple of good points here. All right. So I'm in the natural health book. You don't really have to follow along with me because I'm going to show you. And on page 11, there is a little diagram here that has a hand right here, and there's a wrist right here, right here. So we're going to find a few of these points here. So we're going to look for this one first. And that particular acupuncture point is called small intestine 3. And you'll see it's SI3 in the book. Well, it just says figure 2 in the book. Maybe I can find a better graph of it. Let's see here. Oh, we'll just use this one. Anyway, so this particular acupuncture point is small intestine 3. It's an acupuncture point that is used to treat the entire spine. It is really, really a good point for stiff necks. I use it quite a bit for people who have neck issues. It works well for spasmodic torticollis in babies, what they call wry neck when their heads are torqued all sideways. So I've had a lot of success with this point. So we're going to show you guys how to use this point because it does treat the entire spine. So if you hold your hand up like this and make a fist, there's a line that goes from between the index finger and the middle finger out to the side of the hand. I believe for the people who do palm reading, they call that the, oh gosh, they call that the heart line or something like that. So I'm going to draw it here so you can see it. So this is what the line looks like. And when I close my hand, you'll see that it makes a little lip of skin right here. So with my hand in a light fist like this, we're actually going to go to the very end of this crease and push in right there. So if I take a Dolphin Neurostim, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my thumb right here. I'm going to turn the Dolphin Neurostim on, make sure I got a green light. I'm going to hold it in my hand. And then I'm going to go along this crease until I get to the end. I'm going to set it on the wet setting because my hands are a little sweaty. I'm going to go along until I hit the end of the crease, until the light goes out. And so you can see it. I'm going to turn it around. So as I pull along the side of the hand here, when I get to the end of the line, you can hear a really high pitch and you see that the light goes out. So the indicator that you have found an acupuncture point, a motor point, or a trigger point is that the light goes out and you have a very high pitch. And those are your two indicators. You can always go back to the same point over and over again. I can pull along here, get to the end of the crease, and there we go. There's small intestine 3 right there. And then once I have the point, I'm going to push this, I'm going to hold this black button down. And I'm going to count out about 30 beeps. So most of our protocols in the book are designed to be done in 15-minute segments because a lot of physical therapists use this therapy and a lot of occupational therapists use it. And their life revolves around 15-minute treatment segments. And they typically get only about 4 of those per day to treat a patient. So we're going to count out about 30 beeps. And that's the end of treating that particular point. That's not 30 seconds. That's 30 beeps. And we will also look at these 3 acupuncture points right here. We're going to pick one of these right here on the wrist, and we're going to pick this one kind of right in the middle there. And that particular acupuncture point is called P6, pericardium 6. It is an influential point in acupuncture. It influences the chest. You see it used a lot for nausea. If you have seasickness bands when you go on cruises, that's the acupuncture point they target. Works really well for morning sickness in pregnant women. But anything in the chest, it could be a cough, it could be congestion, it could be COVID, it could be asthma, it could be whatever. It just influences the chest. So we are going to find that acupuncture point, and to find that, we are going to look at the wrist here, and I'm going to drop my hand down. I'm going to make I'm going to see a couple of creases right here. So there is a line that runs along the very base of my palm. And there's another line that's about the width of a standard ballpoint pen away from it coming in right there. So from that line, if we go one straight down the middle, and you can, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a couple of tendons right in here. So we're going to kind of go between these tendons. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 fingers right in here. And there is our acupuncture point right there, pericardium 6. So I'm going to mark that between the tendons right here, like this. Well, now it's moved because I've shifted my hand, so I'm going to have to change the location a little bit. All right. I'm going to turn the Dolphin Neurostim on, make sure I got a green light, put my thumb on the metal plate, very important. Pull this across the skin. Let's get this high enough so you can see it. And you'll see when I get over the point, the light goes out and I get a high pitch. I turn it around and I push the button and hold it for about 30 beats. So that's going to be your general treatment. So every time you use this, you're going to need to practice finding points. I can tell you, having taught this for more than 20 years, there's a learning curve there. It usually takes people, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days of just playing with points to kind of learn how to find points. There are a few pitfalls in there, so you need to know what those are. If you are trying to use this device to find treatment points, it is one of the more accurate devices on the market. However, you can game the system a little bit by how much pressure you use. So we want to make sure that you use steady, even pressure. So here's what I mean. If I take this device, turn it on, and just stab it anywhere in my body really hard like this, you'll see that light goes out. All of these aren't acupuncture points, but what I'm doing is I'm pushing so hard with this device that it's compressing the skin and it's actually making it more electrically conductive. So you want to use just steady, kind of light to medium pressure. You're going to pull this gently along the skin and listen to the tone. You're going to move slowly, and if you do it properly, you'll find your acupuncture points. It does take a little bit of practice, though, so I do recommend just spending a little time looking in the books that come with the device, picking out some of the points, and just practicing finding those. So that's your general point finding with this device. It's really pretty simple if you can remember 2 things, and that's don't push too hard, and you have to have skin-to-skin contact with the person you're treating. So make sure if you're treating yourself, you can find points, no problems. But if this were somebody else's face, I would need to touch their skin somewhere. It could be in their ear or on the back of their neck or on their hand or whatever. But I would need to touch them somewhere and then touch this down to complete the circuit. Otherwise, you can't find points and you can't render treatments. So very important to have skin-to-skin contact with who you're treating. Okay. So the next thing on our list is how to go about using vagus nerve stimulation. If you have purchased this device, you may have purchased a vagus nerve stimulation kit with it. It typically comes in a white box, and there are some attachments in that box. And so we're going to go over what the vagus nerve is and why you might want to do vagus nerve stimulation. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. It's called the wandering nerve. It is considered to be the information superhighway between the gut and the brain. When you properly stimulate the vagus nerve, it will actually calm your nervous system down. There's 2 sides to your nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's your fight or flight response. That's the sympathetic nervous system. And then there's a parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest functions. It's very important to regulate these functions. So many disorders are tied to dysregulation in this system. And you can actually use this device as a neuromodulator to shift your nervous system to where it needs to be. So, for example, you need to spend about 70% of your day on the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. If you don't, you're not going to sleep well, you're not going to recover from diseases very well, you're going to be more vulnerable to diseases, you are not going to have the ability to recover from injuries. It really affects you. And if you are overstressed all the time and your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive, you are not spending 70% of your time on the parasympathetic side. So that's going to result in a lot of weakness on your part in terms of your ability to resist diseases and recover from injuries and to even avoid being injured in the first place. It's actually when you manipulate the nervous system with this, the numbers, one of the numbers you want to look at is something called HRV. So you might want to write down HRV. That's heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is one of the most studied numbers that we can extract from an EKG. It is actually a measure of longevity. If you have good heart, not heart rate, but if you have good heart rate variability, it's pretty well proven that you're going to be pretty healthy and you're going to live longer. If your heart rate variability starts to get too low, then you are a much higher risk of dying. Like that's the science. If you have low heart rate variability, you're probably going to get injured. So if you go to the hospital and have a stress test done before they do an operation, one of the things they do is they stress your body out by making you walk on a treadmill and do these things. And they look at various factors. One of them is heart rate variability. If that number is too low, they won't do surgery on you because that tells them your body is already so stressed that it can't respond. So if they put you under anesthesia and then start cutting on you, you might die on the table. So very, very important number. Sleep Number beds these days even measure heart rate variability. There's little Aura rings that people get and some of the Fitbits and stuff like that. Very important number. The military tracks it. So it's a really important number to look at. So if you use vagus nerve stimulation properly, you can modulate your sympathetic nervous system and you can spend more time on the parasympathetic nervous system side and you can raise your heart rate variability, which is actually a really good thing. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do in normal athletics. But just sitting on the couch by doing a little bit of vagus nerve stimulation, you can actually, research based, like published in the literature, you can actually change your heart rate variability and you can actually improve your stamina just by sitting on the couch. It sounds weird, but it's actually true. Okay. So, what are the benefits of doing this? Well, it's going to lower your cortisol level, which is your stress hormone. It's going to increase your ability to get good, deep REM sleep. It's going to help with your digestion. If you have systemic inflammation, this is going to drop your cortisol by as much as 50%, which is your stress hormone. So, if you're systemically inflamed, if you've got arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis or any autoimmune diseases and stuff like that, using this will help bring your system down a bit. All right. So how do we do vagus nerve stimulation? Well, the things you're going to need to do vagus nerve stimulation are the following. You're going to need this cable. So there's a black cable in your kit that has a plastic cup on one end and has a male connector on one end. You'll notice in this black cup that there is a shiny little plate in there. That shiny little plate has to connect up to the tip of the Dolphin Neurostim like this. So it needs to be on there firmly. So at the other end of this, you have two choices. You can either connect a single, there are some ear clips that you have with your devices. And there are some black ones and there are some white ones. And depending on when you got your kit, there are actually maybe different variations of the white ones. So the white ones are going to be conductive rubber. You can see that black conductive rubber right there. You've got to put a conductive medium on these for these to work, which means you need a little bit of alcohol or a little bit of hand sanitizer will work, or even a little bit of conductive like EEG paste or something like that. Now, there are two variations. One has a dome on it. Okay, if you have a newer kit, you have this dome on it. This is actually the preferred electrode. These are just recently came out. If you don't have them, you can contact the company and order them. But these work pretty well too. And the black ones that you have do not have conductive rubber on them. Instead, there's a metal plate on here. If you have really sensitive skin, I do not recommend using these. But even if you don't have sensitive skin, I do recommend putting a conductive medium on there of some kind so all the electricity doesn't get channeled through one tiny spot on there and irritate your ear. Okay, so you can pick out one of these ear clips and connect the male and female connector here like this. So now I've got an ear clip connected. The other thing that you're going to have is a white cable like this. And this white cable, let me find one that looks like what you're going to have. That's an older model right there. Get a white cable that has a male connector on one end like this and what looks like a female connector, but if you look in here, you'll see that it's actually a shrouded male connector. So you see that right there? It's shrouded. So this is actually two male connectors. If you have an older kit, you will have an unshrouded male connector on either end. So both of these are exactly the same. Don't sweat it. Okay. You also have two bags of electrodes. Some of them look like this. They're rectangular. And some of them look like this. They're little ovals. So you want to pull out one of the oval electrodes. You want to carefully clean this surface right here with alcohol. And the reason you want to do that is because you will have been using this with your hands and oil from your fingers is going to get on this metal plate. And if you get oil on that plate, these little electrodes don't stick very well. Okay. And these electrodes are a little more expensive because we have to have these custom cut to fit the devices for you guys. So I do recommend cleaning these well. You can use these over and over again. When I do vagus nerve stimulation on myself at home, I get probably a month or more out of one of these little electrodes because I never take it off the device. So you simply put this on the metal plate right here, like this. And you're going to connect up your white cable to this little electrode like this. So now I have my Dolphin Neurostim that has a white cable and a black cable connected to it. I have an ear clip connected to the black cable, like so. And on this white cable, I need to connect one of these electrodes, okay, right here. So I'm going to connect that. So now everything is set up for me to actually do vagus nerve stimulation. So how do I go about setting this up? Well, there are different ways you can do vagus nerve stimulation. You can use one ear electrode like this, but you also have in your kit, you have what's called a splitter, a Y wire that looks like this. It's actually going to allow you to use two ear clips, one on either ear. So I'm going to start with how to use one of these. So we'll go over that for just a minute. If you look with your equipment, there are a couple of things. There is a on some of the inserts in the electrode bag, there's actually a little guide that may show you how to connect the ear clips. There's also a cheat sheet, like a quick setup cheat sheet you have. And if you look in the vagus nerve recovery manual, there are also diagrams in there for where to place the ear clips. Okay. So all of that is in your information. You just need to look at it right there, or you can come back and watch this video. So if you're going to stimulate the vagus nerve kind of starts behind your ears on either side, more kind of inside your head, but it kind of starts on either side here and comes down and attach and kind of comes together right here and goes all the way down to your gut. So the left side of your ear, the left side of your head tends to go more down and the right side tends to go more up. So if we're trying to tell things down in your gut and the vagus nerve down in your gut to calm down, we're going to use more of the left ear. Okay. So there are three locations that you can put these electrodes. So there was a recent study that came out. They did an MRI study looking at the most conductive areas of the ear with vagus nerve endings. And the three areas were the tragus, which is this little flappy thing right here, the actual inside of the tragus. So where my fingernail is inside of there. So if you were going to do that, you would put a little bit of electrode paste or EEG paste or alcohol on this, and you would put it inside here down on the tragus like that, okay? So that is probably the most nerve endings that connect to the vagus nerve, but it's difficult to get these things to stick because everybody's ear is a little different. Some people have a tiny tragus, some people have a little bit of earwax on there and it's slick. So that's a really hard area to get these electrodes to stay. The best place to put it is this area right here. So this is the upper concha of the ear. So you got your ear hole right here where you hear. If you pull your finger back up and around, this area right here is the upper concha. So I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to put it right here like this. So it's up in there. And this I find to be probably the best point for stimulating the vagus nerve. Now, if you're using one of these smaller electrodes that doesn't have a dome on it, that doesn't have a dome here on it, then you're going to have a hard time getting to this. So I do recommend using the ones that have a dome on it. They are much more accurate for finding these areas around the vagus nerve. Also, the other place you can do is you can go down to the go down to the earlobe right here, and you can actually put it right here on the earlobe like this, and that will actually allow you to have a place to put it as well. It's not quite as active as the other two sites, but it is something you can use. So we're going to take this and I'm going to put it on my ear. I'm going to put a little bit of alcohol on it. So I have an alcohol wipe here. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to put it up here in the upper concha of my ear. Now I have this electrode, and there are two locations I can put this. I can either put it on my wrist right here, on my left wrist. So it is important to use the left side. So we can put it on the left wrist across like this, or we can put it below the belly button right about here. Okay. So we do recommend that you try each of those and see what works best for you. Different people respond a little differently to vagus nerve stimulation. So you need to find which of those setups works best for you. So this is what we recommend. Once you get this on and you have this electrode down on your tummy or on your wrist, you turn the Dolphin Neurostim on, and then you are going to make sure it is on the negative setting right here. See where it says negative right here? And then you're going to push this little constant treat button here, and it's not making any noise. So that tells me it's going to run for 11 to about 13 minutes, and then it's going to go back into the search mode. And so you could just sit around, you can read a book, you can watch TV, you can do whatever you want to do. The first time you do this, we do recommend doing a 5-minute treatment and no more than 5 minutes. You want to see how your system reacts to it. Some people have a very reactive system, and most people don't have a very reactive system, but some people will feel instantly very relaxed. And if they do this for too long, they'll start to feel a little bit tired. So we want to modulate things a little bit. So we do recommend adding about 5 minutes per day until you hit about 20 to 30 minutes a day. And a lot of people ask how often they should do vagus nerve stimulation. So if you are a really active athlete, let's say you're a performance level athlete, a college, athlete, or a professional athlete, then you would want to use this every day after you work out. It will keep you from going into overtraining syndrome and delayed onset muscle soreness. If you're really sick, we do recommend using this quite a bit because your system needs the modulation to get better. Now, how often do I use it? So here's my background. I'm a single father. I raised 2 kids by myself. And I work for probably about 10 hours a day. I'm 53 years old. I've got a pretty good diet. I do moderate exercise. And what I find is that with the stress level that I deal with on a weekly basis, probably by about Wednesday or Thursday, my system starts to get pretty tired if I don't do something to give it a little boost. So I find that if twice a week I do vagus nerve stimulation for about 30 minutes, it really helps me out significantly. So that's kind of a measure of where I am with it. But like I said, I do recommend adding 5 minutes a day. If you have any weird reactions, obviously you want to stop and contact us so we can figure out what's going on with your system to make sure you don't have some kind of dysautonomia or something like that. The other thing you can do with these is you can use what's called the splitter on these. So it's this Y wire. So instead of having a single electrode on here, I'm going to take this electrode off and connect up the Y wire like this. Then I'm going to connect my ear clip to the Y wire. I'm going to get another ear clip. So now I have two ear clips here, and I can put one on either earlobe or the up in the
I guess.
greater concha of the ear and the upper concha of the ear. And if I'm going to use two of these, then I want to put the white electrode down on my tummy, and I want to put this on the biphasic setting, that plus minus setting like that. And again, all this is in the vagus nerve book. If you aren't following me, it's right there. And same thing goes, you're going to turn it on, run it for 11 to 13 minutes, and it'll reset. Okay, so the other thing you can do is you can do a right ear treatment. So if you do vagus nerve stimulation and you find that you feel really tired afterwards, sometimes your system may be a little bit overstimulated. If that's the case, take one of these clips, put it on your right ear, put the device on the positive setting, the plus symbol right here, and put an electrode down on your tummy and turn it on for about 5 minutes. We don't recommend doing more than 5 minutes of right ear on the plus setting because it is quite stimulating. And I do not recommend doing that before you go to bed at night because a lot of people find that it does actually keep them up. Great thing to do first thing in the morning to kind of get your energy going a little bit, but don't do it much past then. Okay, so that's kind of all the ins and outs of how to set this up to do vagus nerve stimulation. So now we need to go over how to treat a scar. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the tutorial, and it is actually one of my favorite workshops to teach because scars respond extraordinarily well to this stimulation in ways that they will not respond to any kind of manual therapy or, for the most part, acupuncture points or needles or anything else. So scars have very interesting electrochemical properties. They, pardon me for just a second, my child just texted me. All right, we're all good. So scars have very interesting electrochemical properties. They are essentially inversely polarized tissue. So normal body tissue has a negative polarity, scars have a positive polarity. And if you can actually change the polarity of your tissue, then you can get the scar to release. Now, to be clear, you're never going to get rid of a scar. Whatever you have is what you have. However, if you'd like to see the color of scars change, like go to more normal skin tone, if you would like to see raised scars flatten out or dipped in scars kind of come back up and come even with the skin, and if you have really tight adhesions from scars that are painful, then you might want to consider doing scar therapy. So what is it that actually happens? Well, to do scar therapy, we need two Dolphin Neurostims. And what we want to be able to do is to repolarize that tissue. So we want to take that tissue from a negative polarity to a positive polarity to make it release. Well, why would you want to do that? Why does it make such a big difference? Well, number one, scars can be painful. I've treated tons of, when I worked in women's health, tons of C-section scars, tons of hysterectomy scars. Those can hurt for years after people have had that surgery. They can be painful 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And not only can be painful, but if you get any scars in this area right here, and it doesn't matter if they've cut you or they've stuck little holes in you to go in and suck out your gallbladder or whatever it is, it still paves the way for internal adhesions. So if you have one abdominal surgery, you have an 85% chance of getting abdominal adhesions. If you have two abdominal surgeries, that's a 100% chance. So that's scar tissue that grows beyond the boundaries of the initial incision. It'll wrap around your organs. It'll pull on the fascia. So some examples, when I treat open heart surgery scars right here, most of those people tend to have a lot of upper back pain because they're being pulled in this direction by the scar tissue. Okay. Your body is wrapped up with this substance called fascia, which is a connective tissue that wraps around all of your muscles, all of your bones, all of your tendons. It even goes up into your brain. It's one continuous basically body stocking. And there are a lot of layers to it. So if you put cuts through it, it pulls on things. So you can have for example, like a hip replacement scar here that pulls so hard on the connective tissue, you have somebody who can't raise their arm, not because they have a shoulder problem, but because they have a scar that's pulling on the fascia all the way up their body. So scars can really cause a lot of range of motion issues, and hip replacements, knee replacements, reverse shoulders, open heart surgeries, C-sections, hysterectomies. You wouldn't believe how many C-sections and hysterectomy scars I've treated for both not only low back pain, but neck pain. They really do pull on you. So if you have any pain that's been chronic for quite a while and you have scars of any kind, and even if it's a scar from when you were 3 years old and you hit your chin on the steps, those scars, those very old scars, will affect the connective tissue in your body. I've seen some really strange things over the years. So if you have chronic pain, one of the things I recommend is actually going and treating all the scars on your body. You just pick them out one at a time and systemically eliminate them. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, we want to be able to repolarize this tissue. How do we do it? We need 2 Dolphin Neurostims. Here's the thing about scars. Scars do not conduct electricity well at all. Okay, scars are basically non-conductive tissue. So if we try to use something like an electrode like this, and we put this on top of a scar, what happens is that when you put this on top of the scar, the electricity just goes around the scar. Electricity always takes a path of least resistance. So if the electricity is going around the scar, it's not going to repolarize the tissue. So what we want is to drive it through the scar. So to do that, we need 2 different engines, okay? We can't do this as just one. We need 2 different engines. We need 2 sources of electricity. We need one to push and one to pull. So we're going to put one of these on the negative setting right there. And you're going to put one of these on the biphasic setting, which is a plus minus symbol. And we're going to use these to treat a scar. So how do we do that? So we're going to look over here at my board. And we're going to get ourselves a little person with a open heart surgery scar here. You'll have to forgive my bad art here, but you get the picture. All right, so here's our person. And this person has had open heart surgery, so they have a scar right here. And you can see that this person is very, very unhappy because of that scar. So how do we go about treating that? Well, we need 2 Dolphin Neurostims. We need one on the positive polarity and one on the biphasic one. So let's mark that up here. Doesn't matter which side. So on one side, we're going to use the negative polarity like this. On the other side, we're going to use the biphasic polarity like this. Kind of looks like that. And we're actually going to go along the scar with our 2 Dolphin Neurostims. And I'm going to demonstrate first with markers so you can see it. And then I'm going to use the Dolphin Neurostims up there so you can see how that looks. Okay. All right. So I've got my 2 Dolphin Neurostims here. I have one on the negative setting, one on the biphasic setting. I go on either side of the scar, just outside the border of the scar. And I hold my devices there, push the buttons down, and I start counting beeps. And I count out 10 beeps. And after 10 beeps, I move a 1/4 of an inch down and count out 10 more. And I do that all the way down the scar until I get to the end of the scar. So that's one pass. I'm going to do 2 more passes. So I'm going to go back up, count 10 beeps each time. You can switch the units from one side to the other. It doesn't matter. So that's 2 passes. Now I'm going to go start at the top here and go back down 10 beeps. We'll switch them out just for fun. 10 beeps, 10 beeps, 10 beeps, 10 beeps, 10 beeps, 10 beeps, all the way down until I get to the bottom. Once I've done that, what I've done is I've played ping pong with electrons through this scar, okay? So I'm actually pushing electrons across, picking them up, and throwing them back. So I'm bouncing this current back and forth through this scar. That's what repolarizes the tissue. You can massage a scar. I am a massage therapist. I've been doing massage for 30 years. And you can massage a scar and you can make it a little bit softer, but it will take you 20 or 30 visits to do what I can do with one treatment of microcurrent. So if you're a manual therapist, use electricity. This is an electrical problem. It's not a hand problem. It's not a mush things up problem. This is an electrical problem. So your hands do affect the electrical properties of it to some degree. However, using the appropriate electricity will repolarize this much faster. So you can do scraping techniques, you can massage it, you can stab acupuncture needles in it. Nothing works quite as well as repolarizing the tissue properly. All right. So once we've done that, so I'll demonstrate with these devices here. Got 2 Dolphin Neurostims, got one on negative, one on biphasic, like that. I'm not going to worry about the polarity, the sensitivity switches, because I'm not finding acupuncture points. I'm going to turn the devices on, make sure I got a green light on either side, which tells me that I got a good battery. I'm going to get skin-to-skin contact with my patient. Now, if I'm using 2 of these, I don't have to have 2 separate sources of contact. I just need one. But the more contact I have with my patient, the better. The more electricity is going to pass back and forth. So I'm going to go on either side, and I'm going to count out 10 beeps. And I'm going to count out 10 more beeps. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 3 passes back and forth. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to go start on the top, start on the bottom, and work my way to the middle.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm actually on the scar tissue now. I wasn't originally on the scar tissue because it's non-conductive tissue. But now what I've done is I've bounced electrons back and forth through this tissue, and I've restored some of the capacitance of the tissue, its ability to conduct electricity. So now I'm going to treat on top of this, and I'm going to do 3 passes back and forth just like this, but on top of the scar. And after that, that's a basic scar treatment. Now, we do a whole 2-day course on scars, like an advanced scar release course on abdominal adhesions and knees and hips and shoulders and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot more to it than this. But this basic treatment, if you can learn how to do this, you will be surprised what you can accomplish. There was a veterinarian who helped out my cat a couple of months ago. I had a cat with a blocked urethra. So anyway, she saved my cat, and I told her if she saved my cat, I would teach her some cool tricks. And she saved my cat, so I owed her. So I went to teach her some cool tricks. So I showed her how to use these. And I had an older set of these that were mine. And I took them to her, and I said, I want you to try this out. And I showed her how to treat a scar. And I talked with her for, I don't know, we talked for about 30 minutes or an hour how to do it. We practiced on one of her employees. And she was supposed to go try it on some animals. I've treated quite a few dogs, cats, and horses with this. It works quite well. So anyway, I checked with her a few weeks later. I said, well, how did it go? Have you tried this out? She said, well, I have to say I haven't used this on any of the animals in my practice yet. She said, but last weekend I went to visit my mother, and my mother has a C-section scar that's like 40 years old. And every time she sneezes or laughs or coughs, it's excruciating pain. She said, I treated her scar once and all that pain is gone. Gone. And she said, it's the closest thing to magic I've ever seen. And that's my general assessment of how this works. So what we know from the science of this is that if you properly release a scar, one treatment will yield you about a 20% reduction in the overall density of the scar, what's called the cicatrix or cicatrix gray mean density of the scar. It's an ultrasound measurement. But scientifically, each time you treat these scars, you do reduce the overall density of the scar. The less dense the scar is, the more pliable it is, and the more it's going to allow your body to move and do what it's supposed to do. So if you've had scars that are causing swelling, like your lymph isn't flowing back properly because you got scar tissue in the way, you might want to treat those scars. Any kind of scars on the front of the body from an acupuncture perspective, this is all your ascending meridians. It's this really important energy. If any of these are blocked, you need to treat those scars. Old scars can contribute to the pain of new injuries. So oftentimes when I get somebody who has a fresh shoulder or hip injury, I go looking at old scars to see what may be pulling on that area to make it hurt more. And if I release those scars, what I find generally is quite a bit of relief in the area that was just injured. So doing scar treatments is extremely useful. And whatever change you get in this scar, that's permanent. So I could do 5 treatments in a week at about 20% each, and that's about 100% release of the scar. Or I could do a treatment today. I could do a treatment in 2 months from now, and then another treatment in 6 months from then, and I don't lose any ground. So each time you do the treatment, you make a little bit more forward progress. So you don't really lose ground in the actual scar tissue itself, unless you go back and tear that tissue again and create new scarring. So then you have a new problem to treat. But if you just generally treat these scars, it's a permanent thing. So the changes can be very massive and very fast. They're typically quite impressive in terms of overall pain relief, reduction in swelling, and visibly how they look and feel. So treating scars is super duper cool. There are lots of things that count as scars. Chronically sprained ankles, that's a scar. Ever had a broken bone? That's a scar. You can get scar tissue on the periosteum of the bone. Areas where you've had torn muscles, there's scar tissue in there. You may not see it on the outside, but there's scar tissue in there. So you need to look at those kinds of things. If you had spine surgery, I used to work for a neurosurgeon. I could tell you when they go cutting your back up, they have amazing skills, but that doesn't mean there isn't scar tissue that forms in the area that doesn't bind the nerves. So you need to treat those areas if you've had those kinds of surgeries. Plastic surgery scars. A lot of plastic surgery scars are quite painful and pull and can actually make people look odd. If you release those scars, you get a lot more evenness in how the surgery works out. I've done a lot of work on people who've had breast reconstructions after breast cancer. It really does help to kind of even things out and make things look a little more natural. Anyway, so that's the basics for treating scars. We are at about 8:27 right now, so I need to go into some of the contraindications of this device, what to do and what not to do with this. So we're going to go over those for a minute here. So the things not to do with this device, I like to use what's called Joe's rule of pencils. I'm Joe, and this is my rule. So here's the rule. Don't stick this thing anywhere you wouldn't stick a pencil. Don't ram it up your nose. Don't jam it in your eye. Don't stick it way down your ear. Don't put it down your throat. Keep it out of places you wouldn't stick pencils. It's sharp. You can hurt somebody with this. Other than that, you're pretty safe. So there are some do's and don'ts. Don't stick this in an open wound. You can treat around an open wound. As a matter of fact, if you treat around an open wound with this, you increase ATP production by about 400 or 500%. That's adenosine triphosphate. That's the mitochondrial fuel. So it ramps up healing tremendously. You can also increase protein synthesis and cellular membrane transport. All that happens when you do this around an area that's injured. So this is really good for tissue repair. It works quite well. If you're going to treat little children, it's perfectly safe. Just turn it down on a lower setting. We used to do workshops for All Children's Hospital down in Tampa, and they used to treat babies with these, like little bitty babies. It works fine. I used it on my kids when they were little. It was good for colic and fevers and all kinds of acupuncture related stuff. Don't stick it on top of your head if you happen to have seizures or epilepsy. Now, there are acupuncture points that will stop seizures. I have used them before. They are quite effective, but they're not on top of your head. So even with needles, treating on top of the head is contraindicated. Don't treat over an active cancerous tumor with this. So if you have a tumor, say right here on your hand, don't go treat that tumor, because there is some concern that because this increases protein synthesis and cellular membrane transport, that it might increase cancer activity. Now, that being said, there's actually a microcurrent therapy on the market where they pass electricity through your head for brain tumors. In that case, it seems to shrink the tumors. So take it with a grain of salt, figure out what you want to do. Pregnant women, don't treat pregnant women without the express consent of a physician. I used to work in a women's health clinic. They used to order this treatment on patients all the time, but there are some points you need to avoid. Avoid treating on top of the head of pregnant women. That pushes energy down. You're not trying to push a baby out. Avoid treating on top of the shoulders on pregnant women. That pushes energy down and out. Avoid treating large intestine 4, the headache point that everybody talks about. That's called the great eliminator. Don't treat that one on somebody who's pregnant. Stay away from the inside of the ankles. There are acupuncture points here that are used to induce labor. Do not treat over a gravid uterus. Don't treat over where the baby is. Now, I have seen lots of doctors put TENS units on people's backs, and that seemed to be fine. But don't treat directly over this area. Plates, screws, rods, dorsal column spine stimulators, bladder stimulators, insulin pumps, baclofen pumps, those are all fine. Not a problem. Pacemakers and defibrillators, get the doctors okay. Most of them will say yes. If they have any questions, you can refer to the little manual that comes with the device. And when you look in here, there is a little on page like 3, there is a little graph that has the overall electrical parameters of the device. You can send that to the doctor and ask him yes or no, and he'll tell you yes or no. Other things you might want to know about the Dolphin Neurostim, there is in the kit something you might want to look at, and it is an extension probe. Let's see if I've got one here. It looks like this. This has a little shiny metal plate in it. You place it over the end of the Dolphin Neurostim like this. And this is bendable. So you can use this. You can tape it to a back scratch or whatever to treat points in your own back. When I worked in women's health, we would use these. We would get 2 of these, and we would use these to do episiotomy scars. I've seen people who worked in TMJ work, worked in dentistry. They would use these to treat scars inside the mouth. But they make the patients buy these. These are about $25. They make the patients buy these. They have to clean them each time they come in. You obviously don't use these on more than one person at a time. Okay, I think that is all of the do's and don'ts of the Dolphin Neurostim. So we should have about 30 minutes here for questions and answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through the chat list and see what kind of questions we have here. Let's see what we got. Looks like there's a pretty good list here. So, does it matter which hand? That's from Dwayne. Well, it doesn't matter which hand you hold the device in when you're doing a treatment. If you are doing, I'm left-handed. I use my left hand a lot. Sometimes I use 2 of these. It does matter when you're doing vagus nerve stimulation. You want to put the electrode on your left wrist. Questions for the end. Can this be used on a pregnant as a pregnant practitioner? I would say it would depend on your pregnancy. You should check with your doctor. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you whether to use this or not. I would check with your doctor. If you're a high-risk pregnancy, I probably wouldn't use it. If you are not, your doctor says it's okay, then you should be good. Like if your doctor says that you can use a TENS unit, then you should be able to use one of these because technically by the FDA, this is classified as a TENS unit. While using on a C-section scar, usually the device on the bottom distal of the scar, the light goes or stays out. Why? And will that ever change? Okay. So that actually brings up a really good point that we need to go over. With this device, there are exactly 2 times when you want to look at the light on this device. Okay. Here's when you want to look at the light. When you turn this on and the light comes on, that tells you that the battery is good. If that light isn't on, then the battery is dead. That's one of the times when you want to pay attention to the light. The other time you want to pay attention to the light on this device is when you're actually looking for an acupuncture point. So when I'm looking for a point and that light goes out, it tells me I'm on the acupuncture point. Anything else, do not look at the light. Sometimes the light blinks. Sometimes the light doesn't blink. It has to do with how high the device is, how conductive your skin is. There are a million different variables that will determine whether that light blinks or not. You can get wrapped up going down rabbit holes on whether the light is lit or not, and I promise you it does not amount to a hill of beans. Look at the light to make sure the battery's good. Look at the light to make sure you've found an acupuncture point. Other than that, don't mess with the light. It'll drive you crazy. Okay, what else have we got here? What resource studies can I find on MPS? If you go on the website, the Dolphin Neurostim website, there are some sources on there. Doing my wife and I have been dealing with post-concussive syndrome for 6 years from a car accident. We both have daily cognitive fatigue, headaches, tinnitus, not sure how often, and what time of day best to do vagus nerve stim. Should both ears only or left or right, and when to do which acupuncture points using along with vagus nerve. In addition, I lost my sense of smell with a concussion. Are there any points you recommend to help with smell, and how often? My wife has chronic neck pain, right C4, C5, C6, and whiplash. Okay. So for your wife, she needs to do the neck pain protocol. That's going to be an important one. It's in your book. It's in this natural health book right here. We have specific concussion protocols. We actually teach a concussion workshop. It's a whole 2-day workshop. I don't know where you guys live, but if you guys are close to where one of our workshops is, maybe we could bring you in for just a demonstration, or you guys could take the workshop. So you can actually you can contact the main office to find out where we are doing workshops. But these are the hints I will give you. You probably want to do vagus nerve stimulation a couple of times a day. And you probably want to do a lot of parasympathetic calming points on the wrist, and you'll find those in your book. You will probably want to do a lot of neck treatments, and I would pretend that your entire head is a scar. So I would probably want to do treatments from ear to ear and from your nose all the way back. And I would pretend there's a scar that runs this way and a scar that runs this way. Because we do a lot of suture treatment in our concussion protocol. And I just don't have time to go over it in this tutorial. The other point that is extraordinarily important if you've had a concussion, it's a point called Heart 9, H9. It is found on the inside of your pinky finger right here. So if I draw a line across the bottom here and down the side, and that's not working. Let me find a marker here. You can see where these lines intersect. So right here, that's Heart 9. Heart 9 is a specific acupuncture point that is used for strokes, heart attacks, vascular emergencies, and strokes are indeed vascular emergencies, as are concussions. You have problems in your head. So I would do a lot of Heart 9 treatments. That is an incredibly important acupuncture point to treat, A, when you first have the concussion, and B, even years afterwards. It makes a huge difference. And wherever you got hit on the head, you want to treat that specific area like it's a scar. Okay. Laura has had 40 years of severe tibialis posterior pain on the right ankle, medial side from years of judo. She has adhesions. Okay, yes. Laura, definitely treat that entire area as if it were a scar. You also want to treat the low back because if you have any kind of pathology in your low back, this is a dermatome chart. So you can find the area of your pain. You can trace it back up to the spine to see exactly which nerve roots are involved in your problems. And I would treat what are called the shoe points along the low back here. They're about 2 fingers out from the spine at each vertebral segment. You definitely want to treat those for any kind of lower limb pain. That's extraordinarily important. You also might want to consider treating what are called the jing points on the toes, jing or jing well points on the toes, because those are probably going to end up going to the areas where you have your pain. All right. How can I learn how to treat a cat that has anxiety? Carefully. Carefully. I have treated cats before. I have had cats that were very sick. I can tell you what the cats don't like. What they don't like is that noise. So if you're going to treat a cat, You're not going to be able to use the point finder on this. You're just going to have to turn it on so it's blinking like this and go and treat the cat on various points. Usually they're fine with it. And so the funny thing about animals is that they, the acupuncture points are in almost the same places on animals as they are on us. It's just you got to remember some things like they have really long wrists and really long ankles. So what looks like a knee, what looks like their knee is not their knee, it's actually their ankle. But the points are in the same places. And if you just, for the most part, you could actually do vagus nerve stimulation. I've done vagus nerve stimulation on dogs, but you could do vagus nerve stimulation on a cat. You put a clip on their ear, you can put a pad on their tummy, and you can do stimulation that way. Like it actually works. Now, it depends on how wired up the cat is. So the first time you do this, obviously make sure the device is off and just let the cat smell it. And then just poke around on the cat with it a little bit, scratch his belly with it or whatever, and then slowly work up. And then you get to the point that you are using this on them. Now, when you use this on an animal, you do have to be able to have skin-to-skin contact. So you want to pick an area where you can get your other hand. So that would be like kind of under their armpits or on their belly where there's not as much fur. Those are places, or maybe inside their ear. You can touch those areas for good connectivity with this, but it actually works pretty well. Like I said, I've used it on horses and dogs and cats, and they all seem to respond really well. What else have we got here? Let's see. Would you treat around a wound for tissue healing like you would treat a scar on both devices? Yes, we just talked about that, but you would take this, you would take 2 Dolphin Neurostims. I don't even know what I did with the other one. And you would use it to treat around the entire area like you would a scar. So stay outside the borders of the injury itself and just treat around in circles. And you're going to bounce current back and forth through there, and it tremendously helps. Oh, okay. To clarify, Dwayne wants to know, does it matter which hand you treat pericardium 6 on? Should you treat pericardium 6 on right or left wrist? Okay. So as a general rule of thumb, when you go to treat acupuncture points, treat both sides. There are 2 reasons for this. One is for balance, and the other one is that most of you guys aren't acupuncturists. So if you try to treat the points twice, you'll double your chances of hitting them once. And that's a good thing. So the odds are more in your favor if you try to treat them twice. And I promise you, it's important to always treat both sides because you don't always get it right. I've been doing this for years and I miss points all the time. Do you need to remove jewelry? Depends on how much you like sparks. I'm just kidding. Jewelry's fine. It would be kind of cool if it would glow or make sparks or something, but it doesn't. Can you do vagal treatment on a client and massage another area at the same time? Absolutely. So there are a lot of people I work on who've had car accidents or who've had trauma of some kind in their lives. I have people with a lot of trauma before a lot of their injuries, and we have to calm their systems down. There's a lot of anxiety there. So we put the vagus nerve stimulation on them. We put them on the table and we do manual therapy on them, and it's fine. No problems there. It actually helps because, believe it, if you're a massage therapist, if you think massage reduces stress, it actually doesn't. So scientifically, massage actually increases stress. It doesn't mean it's bad for you, but initially, massage actually increases stress. It'll actually run your blood pressure up, interestingly enough, which is why one of the contraindications for massage is people who have really high blood pressure. But if you do massage at the same time you're doing vagus nerve stimulation, they tend to work together to bring the body down faster. All right. Let's see what we got here. When doing vagal in both ears, do they have to be in the same spots on the ears? No, they don't. Can the client grab you to make contact instead of using my own hand? Absolutely. Laura's cat likes the noise. Well, does your cat, Laura, do judo as well? All right. How about hemorrhoids? Yeah, actually, the hemorrhoid treatment actually works quite well. And if memory serves me correctly, I think one of the points for hemorrhoids is somewhere on either side of the nose or right here, one of the acupuncture points. But there are specific hemorrhoid protocols. If you don't see it in your book, send a message on our chat board and on Facebook, and we can probably get a protocol to you. Is there a difference of doing heart 9 point on the right versus left pinky? You should, Dwayne, you should definitely do both. Really, really important ones. All right, let's see what else we got here. How would you treat a hiatal hernia? You would do a lot of vagus nerve stimulation. I would treat the whole hiatal hernia like a scar. So I would go on either side of it. I would even consider with one of your Dolphin Neurostims, putting one of these white cords like this on here. And so I would put an electrode on the patient's back like this. And I would treat from the front like this. So the current's getting pulled through the body. So you can treat into the area where the hiatal hernia is. You also want to look at specific acupuncture points that influence that area. Pericardium 6 influences the chest. Stomach 36 influences the abdomen. So there's specific acupuncture points that influence those areas. And there are actually protocols for hiatal hernias. Hysterectomy. How do you treat when the scar is wrapping around the intestines? Well, you're going to go back and forth across here. And same thing we did before. You're going to put an electrode on the back and you're going to treat through the front. So you're pulling electrons through, but I use 2 devices on the front and 1 electrode on the back. Will this help prolapse bladder, treat like menstrual cramps? Yes. Prolapse bladder or prolapse uterus, there's actually a protocol for that. And I've done some experiments with it when I worked in women's health, and it actually does seem to help. Any points for loss of smell for your concussion? I would look for, so in acupuncture, there are what they call the special sense organs. So each meridian in acupuncture is tied to a specific sense. And I think smell is tied to lungs, though I don't remember 100%.
Yeah.
I would have to look that up. But I think there would be some specific lung points that you would want to treat. Yeah, it actually does help with the COVID loss of smell. Results seem to vary. I've had some cases that did extraordinarily well, and some cases that just took a long time. Vagus nerve stimulation daily really seems to help with that. Let's see what else we got here. How about rashes? Are they... if you have rashes from oxalate problems, that's a reactionary problem. So you're probably going to want to treat things like the allergy points, which is up here in the ear. That's the allergy point in acupuncture. I would treat the parasympathetic calming points. I would do vagus nerve stimulation. Clearly, there is a systemic issue there. So you probably want to see an integrative specialist and do some gut work. That may help out a lot with your oxalate problem. Is there a more comprehensive protocol resource? We have quite a lot of protocols. So what's in process, it's my understanding at the moment, is that a lot of that stuff is being translated into an online resource. And so what you'll be able to do, and this is not available right now, but what you'll be able to do is to type in what your problem is, and you can find the protocol for it. And for 95 cents or whatever, you can actually buy the protocol because it's getting incredibly expensive to send these books out to people. You wouldn't believe the cost of printing and sending these books out. And most of these protocols, there's only a few of them they need. So it's just much more efficient to have that stuff online. So that's kind of in process. So beyond this, we have tons and tons of protocols. If there is a really specific one you need, contact the main office and they can probably give you a push in the right direction to get it. But yeah, we do have the protocols. It's just they're not all online yet, but we're trying to work towards that. All right, so we are at about 8:50 right now. Does anybody have any more questions? You guys good? All right. Well, don't forget that you can watch this as many times as you want. You're going to get a link tomorrow. Sign up for our Facebook forum. We will send you periodic emails to know if there are workshops coming up in your area. We do online and in-person workshops. And we have some pre-recorded stuff as well. So there are a lot of resources we have available to educate you on things, depending on what your specialty is. So you might look at those. But thank you guys for coming out this evening. If you ever want to sign up for this again, you can catch me again. I'll probably say a lot of the same stuff, but the color of my shirt's going to be different. And I may spin things a little differently. Like this guy might have a different smile, or I may tell you how to treat shingles in a horse or something. Who knows? So it's a little different each time. All right. So thank you guys for coming out. Have a lovely evening, and I look forward to seeing you guys either in some of our online workshops or in person. So have a great evening. Bye-bye.